So for today's training, we're going to look at 3 of our 6 evidence-based practices and specifically zero in on 3 of those 6. Now, I did not design our treatment plan specifically like it, but I was like, hey, this is pretty cool that out of our 6 treatment modalities, 3 of them are manualized and 3 of them are not. Guess which ones are really easy to create treatment goals for? The manualized ones. So today I'm going to start out with the easiest, which is those items that have treatment manuals with them. And then as we go through today, you will see we're going to start out with the evidence-based program that is the most manualized, and the goals really aren't going to change much at all from what they're not going to vary much from what you see today. So you can actually, like, if you wanted, you could take notes, but you can copy and paste these straight into a treatment plan for this evidence-based program. Now, as we go from there, the second and third ones, they're going to start to become more and more, there's going to be more and more theoretical added to it. And so with that theoretical added to it, you're going to need to implement more and more of the client's language into those treatment goals, especially the sub goals and the actions. Anyway, so we're going to start out with the period of purple crying. All right, so the period of purple crying is actually created by the National Center on Shaken Baby Syndrome, and we're going to see that as we go through some of the items of the period of purple crying. So for each of the evidence-based programs we're going to look at today, you're going to see the main categories repeated over and over. We're going to look at guidelines for creating treatment goals. We're going to look at main goal and sample main goals for each of these evidence-based programs. We're going to look at sub-goals for each of these evidence-based programs. And then for each sub-goal, we're going to zero in and look at the actions for each of those sub-goals to see that sub-goal completed. Okay? So let's start out with key guidelines. Key guidelines, I'm going to pull those up right now. For the period of purple crying, there's all kinds of different ways I could have gone, but I tend to be more pragmatic in my approach, trying to look at the theories and then zero down into, okay, what's really the most important for us when it comes to treatment goals. So the period of purple crying is delivered in doses using medical language. Now, this is on a spectrum, this is the exact opposite of the Community Advocacy Project, which does not want you to use medical terminology or legal terminology. But for the period of purple crying purposes, they're using medical terminology, and it's delivered in 1 to 3 doses. Now, the first dose, this is going to be repeating for you. That's okay, right? The first dose is usually to be delivered prior to a birth. The second is usually delivered by the hospital right after the birth. And the third is to be delivered in the home once the family returns to the home. Okay? Each dose is really about the same exact thing. It's just repeating the content through a different provider. Now, there is a hospital connection with this evidence-based program because Parkview uses this, and that's a very big hospital as far as I'm aware, especially here in northern Indiana. They are using this with families, so they would be giving the second dose, possibly the first if the family would come into the hospital. This is important to realize when you're thinking through how to make the main goal. And then be thoughtful. There's no pressure to deliver the full dose in one session. You know, as well as I, that you're going to be working with the family on resources as well. But we supplemented this into our evidence-based list a year or so ago because Triple P really doesn't address 0 to 1 well. Even though it's been proven to be effective for 0 to 12, 0 to 1-year-olds, they don't have the misbehaviors like we're seeing with like maybe a 1.5, 2-year-old. And so how do we create safety? We added the period of purple crying for that. Now we'll move into main goal, and we'll look at some different ways to word a main goal. Oh, you baby. All right. So here's 4 sample main goals. I just kind of came up with these, but depending on how you want to focus the wording of that goal, one could be complete 1 or 2 doses of the period of purple crying. Pretty simple, right? We could look at an education focused goal, which this program is very, very education focused. It's much more about teaching. Learn new ways to comfort baby while increasing coping skills. We could look at an action-focused wording for the goal, normalize the infant crying, and increase parenting coping skills. The word normalize kind of is not a word that you use a whole lot in today's vernacular, so the family may or may not be able to grab a hold of that. Or we could just focus on straight safety, which DCS would probably love. Increase parent and child safety through comfort and coping skills. You could take one of these are just samples for you, but you could take one of these, you can combine it with another one. Like for instance, if I was going to use the safety one, I might add on to the beginning or the end, increase parent and child safety through comfort and coping skills through completion of the period of purple crying program, or through 1 to 2 doses of the period of purple crying program. So you can combine these easily. It's not a bad idea on each one of these evidence-based programs that we go through to spell out about how many sessions are we recommending that the client take. All right. So like for instance, seeking safety might be 10, might be, 6, but anyway, we're focusing on the period of purple crying. Is there any questions so far on what you're seeing? None? We're going to go ahead and move forward. This will be videotaped, and I'm also going to share with you a sheet where you can actually pull and copy and paste from that sheet for each of these evidence-based programs. So I'll share that with you after today's training. Let's move into sub-goals. So this is our main overall goal, right? That's what we're looking at here. When we create that goal, and of course, the type is going to be not clinical, not daily living skills, but parenting. Those are our 3 categories. For our main goal, we're going to move into our sub goals. All right. So for the period of purple crying, there are really, if you read through the material, there is just 4 sub goals for the period of purple crying. So goal number 1, I kind of pulled out some of the key thought here, and I just called it understand. So goal number 1, understand the period of purple crying. If you go through the material, that is really one of the main things that they want you to learn is what is the period of purple crying? What does that even mean? That kind of thing. Number 2 has to do with soothing. So it's learn and practice ways to soothe your baby. And it's okay to say your, in your sub goals. You could even put in any of these, you could put the client's name as well if you would like. And goal number 3 is to cope. We're going to learn how to soothe the baby. We're also going to learn how to cope because there's going to be times where the baby is maybe inconsolable. And that's what the program talks about. Learn and practice action steps when crying becomes frustrating. And then goal number 4, this is part of the period of purple crying, is download. Be equipped with the period of purple crying app. Okay. So let's move into our actions of how each one of these looks, and they're very simple. This is very simple and straightforward program. You know it. It's only 1 to 2 doses, and each dose really is the same, looks the same, exact same. So let's move into our key action steps. And what do I mean by that? On our treatment plans, they're called actions or interventions. So when you look at that and each sub goal has a little box underneath it where you can put in these action steps that I'm going to show you next. Okay. Defeat. All right. So our first goal is to understand the period of purple crying. There's really up to 4 actions to make that happen. We're going to learn about the peak of crying. We're going to learn the resistance to soothing that happens with children. We're going to learn the normal length of the crying. So that's that period of purple crying, right? The age range, but about how long are we talking? So we're going to have those conversations with this new mom, especially. And then we're going to learn that the most common times of the day for crying. That's what the program's really going to take them through. And so, in talking through this with the client, um, this is hey, this so these manualized programs are the most important part is talking through it before you even present the treatment plan, talking through some of this, and then it'll be repeated once you come back to them and say, hey, I'll go ahead and put this down onto paper, and I'll bring it in. We can talk about what that, and we can show you what that actually looks like on paper. Would that be helpful for you? And usually the family's going to say, yeah, it'd be helpful, you know. And so you're bringing in almost like this checklist of, hey, we're getting this stuff done. We're knocking it off as we go through. Our second goal, learning and practicing ways to soothe your baby. Quite a few actions or for this sub goal, checking to see if your baby's hungry, tired, needs changing, holding your baby close to you with skin to skin contact, walking and singing with your baby, giving your baby a warm bath, taking your baby for a walk or a ride in the car. Realize that soothing will not work every time. We're almost moving into almost like a safety plan for if the child is to start crying, but this really is how the program is set up. And so these are some of those actions that you can put in there. And you can even ask the family, hey, since the last time that we went through the period of purple crying, in your next session or in the session after, how's that going? You can pull out the treatment plan. Or have you been able to do any of these things? We can mark those off. Great, that's awesome. Our sub goal number 3, learning and practicing action steps when the crying becomes frustrating, right? Carry and comfort, walk and talk with the baby. If it's too frustrating, it's okay to walk away. I loved this video of this lady bouncing with her kids, so I had added in. It's okay to get a partner or a friend to help and never shake or hurt your baby. I mean, these are straight from the program, so they're going to be hearing it through the treatment plan. They're also going to be seeing it through the program. Okay. And then number 4 is be equipped with the Period of Purple Crying app. Pretty straightforward, right? Downloading the app with them. So downloading it together, helping them set up a profile. Don't assume that they know how to. They probably do if they're younger, but they may not. Exploring with them the app and showing them, hey, this is how you access the articles and some of the resource videos. You don't have to watch those with the family, but showing them how to use it is what this goal is really about. And then seeing if they would, opening up the tracking sections and showing them how to use that. Again, we can provide a tool to somebody, but if they don't know how to use it, are they going to use it? Probably not. So I could give someone who's never seen a hammer and not show them like this is how it's used. They're not going to know what it's used for. So taking them through how to actually track their baby's crying, feeding, sleep, vaccinations, and even diaper changes. Again, they don't have to. This is their choice, but it's a tool that we're putting into their hands if they would like to. And we have had mothers especially, we've had fathers too, use this last point, and have come back to us and said, hey, this is really helpful. So that wraps up the period of purple crying. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy. Is there any questions about the period of purple crying?